Welcome to Batshit, a frank and funny look at living with mental illness.
While we'll touch on several illnesses, Batshit is focused on those along the spectrum of bipolar disorders. I'm your host, Adam.
And I'm your other host, Brad.
And we're both bipolar. So strap in and let's see how batshit we really are.
Spoiler alert, pretty damn batshit.
Damn straight.
This episode's topic, sex.
It's just going to be Brad and I making love for the next 30 minutes. All right, sorry. No, that's not what it's going to be at all.
Dine Pizza is here.
Oh, I wanted the pizza. No, we're not doing that. We're also not going to talk about sex with our wives. Not going to do that.
So if you thought that's what was going to happen, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you. Also, baby, we love you. Babies, we love you. That's not what this episode's about.
No.
What it is about is the sex drive. The emotions tied to sex, relationships in general.
How mania and depression
both
affect it.
Yeah, because it's a huge component to relationships,
Yeah.
Now,
And just to the human experience.
Sure.
We are hardwired to want physical connection with another person.
Right. And it doesn't have to do with penetration.
Right.
That's just like any physical touch.
Yeah.
At all.
Cuddling.
Yeah.
Kissing.
Holding hands, even like pats on the back.
Yeah.
And it's
nibbling Adam's earlobe.
Well, just the left. It's funny because like as men, we are taught that the only appropriate form of physical contact is being intimate with a woman.
Yeah. And specifically penetrative sex.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Other than that, and all of these things for the most part are shows of strength, right? Yeah. Like, for instance, something else that's appropriate for guys to do is shake hands, right?
Yeah.
But when you shake hands, what is it usually people like, who can shake the hand, like give a nice firm handshake, right? To prove who's dominant.
Who's stronger.
Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
right? I think
or you do that thing where you pull them in and pat their back.
Yeah, but hard. You don't gently pat their
boom,
back.
Boom.
Yeah. If you make a fist, and you pound them on the back. But like that's how we're taught to display affection. And then when we get to an age where like sex comes into play, sex can often take on a violent tone. And like you get inclined to like that's your idea of what physical connection is, which is fucking twisted. Really.
Yeah. There's definitely some toxic, and that's not even getting into the hang-ups about sex.
No.
The whole Madonna horror complex.
Oh God.
All these things. We don't mean the singer.
No.
We're not calling her a whore.
No. Madonna is a gift from God.
But there is that kind of conquering penetrative thing for men.
Yeah.
A fascinating bit of trivia.
Oh, goody.
With that, in ancient Rome, they had no stigma against homosexuality.
Right.
Only if you were on top. The one penetrating was considered a man.
Oh, but the bottom was not.
Yeah, if you were penetrated, you were a catamite.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that carries, I'm sure that carries over into like gay culture today because there is a lot of stigma in the gay culture about being a bottom as opposed to a top. Like I've had conversations with several of my male gay friends who, oftentimes have said like in certain circles, like they don't want to be considered a bottom.
Really?
Like, yeah. Huh. Which again that's too bad. Because at the end of the day, sex should be about pleasure and connection, right? Like that's what it should be about.
Even if it's a one night stand.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
This mutual exchange of pleasure. That's what's fun about it.
Right.
That's what is fulfilling and enjoyable. And when you get into these states, that changes.
Yeah, it does.
When you're depressed, a lot of times your sex drive just goes away.
Disappears.
But even if it doesn't, sex changes tone. It's not so much about giving and receiving pleasure. It's just about the comfort of being with another human being.
Yeah.
And the comfort, because when you're depressed, you feel worthless and you feel unlovable. And it's just the idea that someone could want you.
Sure.
at that moment.
Well, I think when you're depressed or when you're manic, you are a pit, right? And you just try and throw everything you can into that pit to give yourself a feeling, so to speak. You know?
Yeah.
And that's sometimes what sex ends up being, is like, I just need this. I need this now because this is going to make me feel something. And
kind of self-medication in and of itself. You're getting the oxytocin, you're getting the dopamine hit.
Right. And then as soon as the event is over, after those 2.5 minutes, it's, you're just craving it again. And because, again, you're trying to self-medicate and self-soothe, and this is the way you're doing it.
Yeah. And then cuddling in and of itself after the fact, if you're a cuddler.
If you're a cuddler.
I'm a cuddler.
Yeah. Brad's a big old titty bear.
That also releases these hormones.
Sure.
So, and again, just offers comfort. Like if you're depressed, it makes you feel better, but you also get that comfort of another human being. It's almost the same way you see like monkeys groom one another.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember when you were grooming me.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I had to get those fleas out of your hair.
Well, yeah. Hey, man, Van Nuys is not the cleanest city to live in. I'm just saying. But going back to the whole cuddling, just physical touch of any kind, right? Like talk about how just holding hands on the couch, or even like shoulders brushing up against each other while you watch TV, like that. There is a sense of comfort there. There is like knowledge that someone is in that room with you, who cares about you, who's there to support you.
And there are so many people who are touch starved.
Touch starved. Ooh, yeah, that's a great phrase. I love that. Yeah.
And it does a number on you when you're touch starved.
Especially children.
Oh, completely.
Right?
Completely.
Like, don't get hugged as a kid, Or,
yeah, like we've talked about that before. Like I was never hugged as a child. And
right.
when I, as an adult now, going through therapy and having been diagnosed, I can see that a lot of the stuff that would come out when I was depressed or manic all stems from that.
Sure.
That I had this desperate need for human contact because I never had it during my development.
Right. And when you reach out for comfort or support or love and you don't receive it in the way that you need it, right? Like, how detrimental is that? And it can be something extremely simple. It's like, I was talking to my therapist the other day, and he brought up like a situation where you as a kid, you come home from school and you've painted something, like finger painted some crap, right? And it looks terrible. But you bring it and you're like, look, mommy, daddy, look what I did. And the value and the worth that you can provide that kid simply by engaging them in that event, that accomplishment, that painting is huge, and gives them that sense of love and support, as opposed to people like, yep, it's on the fridge.
Yeah.
Now that kid's never going to share anything with you ever again when it comes to his finger painting.
Yeah.
Right? And then you fast forward 20 years, and that kid starts getting in relationships with other sexual partners, and they have the want or the need, and they don't feel comfortable expressing it to that sexual partner because they're worried about not being validated.
Yeah.
Not being recognized.
Yeah.
And they oftentimes will downplay their own needs and wants because their self-value is so low.
Yeah.
Right?
And there can be, especially when you're not with a good partner, a sense of judgment.
Oh, yeah.
During sex, whether that's about your performance or about your body or whatever. And that goes both ways for the man and the woman.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've been with women who... Okay, so this is a weird topic because we don't want to obviously get into like details on our sex life. I was just gonna say I've been with women who don't like being on top because they're self-conscious.
Sure.
About it.
Or women who don't like to have the lights on. When you're making
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating how all that comes into play. And then, you think of, again, all these things that happen when we're children. You think of your first kind of formative sexual experiences.
Sure.
All these things kind of come together. Whatever power dynamics you experienced as a kid, like weird things with your parents.
Or religion. Like the way religion comes into play.
Yeah.
Like,
and all this like forms the soup of your sexuality is. Yeah.
Your sexual soup.
Your sexual soup.
I'd like a ladle of your sexual soup, please.
Take a pinch of love.
A sprinkling of desire.
Half a cup of tenderness.
Brad and Adam are releasing a CD of love songs.
My darling, I can't get enough of your sexual soup.
We should definitely cover soul and R&B. I think that would be a huge selling point for us. Like, yeah.
Batshit presents.
Batshit. That's how we're gonna make money off this podcast. We're gonna start releasing compilation albums.
Oh, those will do real well.
They will real well. That's why. That's why everyone's
they can play
listening
as infomercials at 3 a.m. New from Time Life's library, Adam Slemon and Brad Hodson bring you the greatest R&B hits of the 1970s.
Do you miss when white America tried to, take away soul from the black man? Well, don't worry, because here comes 2 white guys out of California.
I'm going to tell you a really funny story. It was funny to me, anyway. Luckily, it was funny to the chick, too. So there was a chick I was out with, and drop her off. And we start making out. And what's the Marvin Gaye song?
Oh, Sexual Healing?
No. The Let's Get It On.
Oh, Let's Get It On.
Let's Get It On comes on, and I was like, it's like, I was like, yeah, we can't do this. We were both laughing at it, and we skip it, and then it's Gimme Some Lovin'. And then we skip that, and then I think it was like Sexual Healing came on. I was like, let's just turn the radio off.
Stop. None of this is gonna work. None of this is gonna work.
Yeah.
But that's interesting too, right? Because you have these different cultural influences for sex, and music is a great example of like, yeah, oh my God, like how toxic like some rock and roll and some hip hop and R&B is when it comes to like a man or a woman's dynamic in the sexual relationship, and how warped that can make young men and women's minds.
Oh, right. Again, the idea of these kind of like dominant, violent sexual acts, especially for men.
No, it's terrible
to establish your masculinity. But again, a lot of stuff with women. That women, I feel like women are taught that they either, again, it's the Madonna whore thing. They either have to be a prude and repress their sexuality, or they have to be ultra sexual.
Right.
Even when they don't want to be and they're uncomfortable with it.
Sure.
That their sexual performance kind of establishes their worth.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. Well, and it comes from every side. Like I'm reading Dune right now, which is a hard read. I've read it before, but I'm not going to get into reading science fiction. But there's
especially in a sex episode.
A sex episode. But hear me out. There's
kind of a contraceptive, though. I guess.
Well, that'll fix them. In like book 3, there's this moment where Paul Leto is talking about what he's going to do, and he tells his woman Jaina, like, "Hey, this is what we're doing." And the narration is like, because I'm listening to it, the narration is like, "She knew as a desert woman that sometimes in these," and I'm like, even in the sci-fi like explorative, flipping society on its head, exploring these different avenues, like there is this built-in negative connotation towards the various sexual roles and the relationship roles and dynamics that exist. And I think it's just very frustrating, because going all the way back to what you were saying about like first sexual encounters, like if you're a man or you're a woman and your parents have grown up with these same, elements being thrown at them or these same influences, they're probably not going to have the conversation that should be had with you about sex.
Yeah.
And
they might give you the birds and the bees talk.
Maybe.
Like, here's the mechanics.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Or, be nice to women.
Yeah.
That's it. You know what I mean? It's like,
make sure you wear a rubber, son.
Yeah. That's all you're going to get. Yeah. Or like, no, don't, not before you're married. Don't don't get knocked up type of thing. Like,
Which, come on, man. Like, I tell you, as somebody who grew up in the South, that whole not before you're married thing just leads to a lot of teen pregnancy.
Oh, yeah. Well,
let's not talk about it. Kids are going to do it because that's your hormones.
Yeah, there's hormones involved. Yeah, there's hormones involved. And then you start trying to repress those hormones, and you start trying to repress those urges, or not talking about them with your partner. And
then you become a serial killer.
Right, exactly. Which is how I got my start.
I find it, something I find interesting is just talking about sex. I made the joke about serial killers, but how much when you get into serial killers, their killings revolve around sex. I don't mean them having sex.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of like repressed sexual urges.
Right.
But a startling number of serial killers are the children of prostitutes.
Really?
Yeah, and so
that's interesting. Now that I'm thinking back on it,
yeah. So there's weird from a very early age, weird kind of sexual stuff going on in their subconscious. I'm not saying that all prostitutes are going to give birth to serial killers.
Nope, not at all.
There's obviously other things going on there, but I just find that interesting.
Enjoying Batshit? Please like, subscribe, and share it on social media. If you have someone you think may need to hear it, we encourage you to share it with them and to start your own conversation about mental health.
We talked about depression.
Yeah.
I think with this, though, mania is probably a bigger thing because in both hypomania and full-blown mania, you get hypersexuality.
Well, and here's the thing. I would be real about it for a minute. Like, when Brad brought up this topic of sex, I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to talk about it. And it's not because I am in any way embarrassed to talk about my sex life.
You should be.
I should be. Well, I mean, none of y'all see me naked, but it's not a treat for anybody. But that idea of, like, sex as a topic of conversation, like, I'm depressed most of the time. And so sex is not very interesting to me. It's not that I don't enjoy sex. It's not that I don't...
It's just not something that's on your mind.
It's not on my mind at all. And I think back to, like, my early 20s, my teens, into my late 20s. And it's not that I didn't have sexual urges. I did. I wanted to have sex. I was interested in having sex, but it was never a driving force for me.
Yeah.
No, like, was it ever a driving force? Like, was that something that, like, there were days when you're like, dude, tonight, going out, gotta, do my thing? I don't know what the correct, get some. Is that how you people
get some tail?
Get some tail. Like, was that ever a driving force for you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A lot. And it's, again, looking back on things, it's the hypersexuality that comes with mania. And you get the hypersexuality,
mm-hmm.
you get the impulsivity, you get the grandiosity, where you think you're just hot shit. I've talked before about how last year when I lost a lot of weight and got in shape and started getting attention from people for it, like, I thought I was fucking Ryan Gosling.
Right. We've talked about this, though.
Yeah. I am Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito. But, like, a really shredded Danny DeVito.
Yeah, shredded. Like, hitting the weights, DeVito. If you can imagine that.
Like if Danny DeVito was making a sequel to, like, Total Recall, and it was like Total Recall starring Danny DeVito. Like that Danny DeVito.
Total DeVito.
I'd watch that.
No, but yeah, so you get full of yourself, but you're charming,
mm-hmm.
you're funny, you can actually pick up women.
Yeah.
And so you have the hypersexuality. You also have the risk taking. So you get into a lot of risky sexual behavior. There are a lot of guys, and this might be true of women too, I don't know, but there are a lot of guys who, when they go manic, not only seek out prostitutes, but will have unprotected sex with prostitutes.
Really?
Yeah. Which, again, you talk about, like, the risk taking.
Right.
The only thing I could imagine that's riskier behavior you might do while you're manic, aside from, like, I'm going to jump off a building or drive my car at 120 miles an hour, would be, like, sharing a needle with someone if you're doing heroin, right?
Right.
But when you're in these states, shit like that doesn't occur to you.
Sure.
You don't care. It's just about the moment. It's about that dopamine rush. It's about feeling like you're on top of the world. It's about, satisfying this hypersexual urge. I was telling Adam before we started recording this episode, there are a few bipolar groups I joined online, and I just kind of lurk. I don't really...
Which is what Brad's most known for.
Yeah.
They call him Lurkin' Brad.
Yeah. Again, talk about when I'm, like, cruising for sex, I'm
cruising for sex? Who cruises for sex?
Al Pacino.
Okay, fair. All right.
That makes it sound like I'm a closeted gay man in 1987. I'm out cruising.
Get
I
your
was-
mustache
yeah.
and your oversized sunglasses.
I was gonna make a joke about lurking, but then it's like, I think that's a little too.
Oh no, yeah, no.
Anyway, so these groups, I've seen a lot of people post that they're going manic, and there was a woman I saw who had posted that she's going manic, and she's had to engage her friends and her husband to make sure she's not alone with a man or multiple men, because the implication there being is that when she goes manic because of the hypersexuality and the risk taking, God knows what she's going to do.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah. It really is, because like we've talked about, you're basically a different personality.
Sure.
When you go manic and you come out of those states and you're like, what the fuck did I do?
Right.
And when you have the memory gaps, I mean, think about that. If you engage in a lot of risky sexual behavior when you're manic and then you don't remember what happened,
right?
How fucking scary is that?
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, you factor in
especially as a woman.
Sure. You factor in the shame that goes into sex just in general. Like our culture's attitude towards sex is it's super shameful.
Yeah.
You know, and then you also factor in that like vulnerability that accompanies sex, right? So you connect with someone, you're vulnerable with someone, you have sex with someone, you're in an altered state, you're not yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So that person on the other end of that sexual experience thinks they're connecting with someone who they're not connecting with.
Yeah.
They're connecting with a alternate version of you. Like, how awful is that for your partner? How painful and rude and like could be scarring. Absolutely scarring.
Yeah.
That's, oh man, I never thought about that until just now. That's, woo!
Yeah. And I imagine that could be a danger when you get little communities together, you know, people who find each other because they're bipolar.
Sure.
You know, if they're experiencing mania at the same time.
Yeah.
Not to mention, like we've talked about before, mania, because it floods your body with all these hormones, you think you've fallen in love.
Oh, man. And then you have like these groups of friends, right?
Yeah.
Where like people like interdate, and you know, if you have someone who is sick in that group, right? And like you were saying, like you fall in love with your best friend, right? These people that you trauma dump on.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the support circle, especially when you're like a teenager and your hormones are running rampant, right?
Yeah.
And you're just discovering who you are, and like maybe you don't have a huge friend circle. And then all of a sudden now you're trauma dumping, you fall in love with this person in your group. You end up like engaging in sexual activity with them, and then that person changes, you change on that person. Like that journey is just fucking terrifying.
You just described my entire life. Over and over and over again.
Over and over again. You can buy that screenplay by Brad C. Hodson called My Sad Sex Life.
But not sad in the way you think it.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's the byline.
Yeah.
That's going to be really small.
Yeah. Colon. Not sad the way you think.
With a smiley face. At the
Yeah,
end
with a
of it.
smiley face. I put glitter all over it.
Yeah.
So that when it hits the producer's desk.
Oh, they love when glitter explodes out of envelopes. That's what they're known for.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's such a crazy topic because there's so much involved emotionally. There's so many minefields.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of touched on it in a Batshit episode. I've been thinking recently, because undiagnosed men with bipolar tend to have their worst episodes in their 40s and their 50s.
Right.
If they're not on medication, which is the age range where men have a midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
What do men do in a midlife crisis? They buy a sports car. They start dating a 21-year-old. They think that they fall in love with this 21-year-old. They leave their wife for her.
Their kids, yeah.
Yeah, and they start engaging in all this crazy behavior that matches perfectly a bipolar manic state.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think about how many marriages or other relationships have fallen apart because someone's manic, they go out and they screw someone else and think they fall in love with that person.
Right.
And then they're like, I'm going to leave my wife, or, you know, I'm going to leave my significant other, whatever. And then they go out, and maybe 3 months later they come down from that state and they're like, what the fuck
did I do?
Yeah.
What
You know?
did I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to go to the club with this girl until 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
I have a job. And
My feet hurt.
my feet hurt. My shin splints.
Oh, my hip.
But yeah, I mean, let's talk about it from a depressive state too, right? Like, you talk about these people who hit these manic states, and they go out and they seek a sexual partner, or they go out and seek a sexual experience. So meanwhile, if you're in a depressive state, right, you are worthless.
Yeah.
You feel worthless. So the idea of connecting with someone is impossible.
Yeah.
If you're at a bar, or you're at a club, or you're
not
party,
picking anybody up.
You're not picking up anybody. Like, you can be freaking Ryan Gosling, or Brad. And if you're in a depressive state, like, you're going to look around, you're going to see these beautiful people, and all these people are too good for you.
Yeah.
No, you are.
Why would they?
Why would they waste? Yeah, like, you are not worth any of their time. Like, just going up and talking to that person is, why? Why do it? Why do it? And, you'll be in, like, social situations, and eventually, if you're depressed long enough, you start coming up with other excuses and reasons why these people might not want to talk with you. You know what I mean? Like, you start creating excuses, and but at the end of the day, you feel worthless. You feel like any attempt at connection is going to be wasted energy on both your parts. So why bother?
Yeah.
And it's sad.
And people pick up on that.
Of course they do.
It's not like someone's going to be like, oh, that guy seems troubled. I'm kind of attracted to that.
That's why I feel like there's so many writers in Hollywood that have put that in screenplays. Like, some beautiful girl sees the sad sack at the end of the bar, and they're like, we have to go figure out what's wrong with him. Like, let's go talk to him. Like, that doesn't happen.
And even if that did happen, it's not happening with any kind of, like, romantic or sexual desire.
Right. They're like,
it's like, I feel really sorry for that son of a bitch.
Or I'm worried about that guy.
Yeah,
We better go talk
to him. Is that guy
going
to slit his wrists at the end of the night?
Yeah. And then meanwhile, all of a sudden, like, that idea of someone being concerned about you turns into an infatuation, because you're like, this person sees me. This person gets me. Like, and then all of a sudden there's this false idea of romance, and this false idea, you're falling in love with someone who is coming at it from a completely different point of view than you have.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And because of what's going on in your brain during these states, you think you're on the same page. I was reading about something called erotomania.
Erotomania.
So,
sounds like a video game.
Yeah, so it's a type of delusion that's classified. It's the belief that someone else is in love with you.
Okay.
And because it's a delusion, it's a low-key delusion, you can misremember things that people say to you.
Really?
Which we've talked about before with our memory issues with bipolar. And you can misremember them in ways that were romantic.
Interesting.
So, for instance, if you had a chick that was a friend, and she calls you up one night, and she's just like, thank you for being there. I really appreciate you in my life. When you remember that a week later, you might the phone conversation might play out. Thank you for being here for me. I really love you in my life.
Right, or something like that.
Something like that. It might just be these little, like, differences, but they add up.
Sure they
as
do.
You play them out in your mind to being like, oh, this person's into me.
This person's super into me, yeah.
They're into me. And, with bipolar 1 especially, but it happens with bipolar 2, obviously happens with schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, etc. You can have these delusions. And erotomania is a common one, apparently. So you get the great experience of being hypersexual. You get flooded with these hormones that make you think you're in love, and then you have a delusion that somebody's in love with you. So that's going to end well.
Yeah, that's going to
right?
go real well. Yeah. Real well. Yep. Yep. Sounds like most of my teens and 20s. Yeah, I think I think that's the other part of being diagnosed so late in life that bothers me, because I go back and I look at the relationships I've had, sexual partner wise or otherwise, and like, how much of that was I misinterpreting? How much of that was I misremembering?
Yeah.
How much of, like, the sexual encounters I had growing up were horribly skewed in one way or another, and I'm misremembering them
Yeah.
as it is.
I have to question that a lot. I had a friend who I had like phone conversations like that.
Mm-hmm.
That when I remember, like they would say very kind of romantically interested things to me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, did they? You know, they told me that they loved me once as a friend, but the way I remember it was that they said it like this: "I love you," as a friend. Like they caught themselves.
Right.
That's how I remember it. But is that actually how it played out?
Is that how, or
is that a delusion?
Or was it a delay in the phone connection?
Well, that was in person.
Oh, okay.
But did that actually?
Right.
Was that beat? Did that beat exist?
Right. Well, and that's the other trippy thing, right? Because a lot of chemistry, a lot of relationships, it comes off of reading body language and subtle social cues, right? And if you can create those subtle social cues, and you're like, "Yep, this person loves me,"
right?
It's like then you misremember the ones that don't happen. I mean,
there's a reason that bipolar patients are notorious for being unable to maintain any kind of relationship, romantic or friendship. And it's all this shit.
Yeah.
There's just this cocktail, this like perfect storm of being incapable of having a normal relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
You can't have a normal friendship. You can't have a normal romantic relationship. Like everything has to be skewed. You have to find people who understand what's going on with you and can meet you where you are.
Yeah.
And appreciate that you're fighting and you're trying to meet them where they are and you're trying to be a normal person, but it ain't going to happen all the time.
Yeah.
You know? And now you throw sex on top of all that.
Complicate the whole fuck thing up.
And what's kind of sad to me, like, you know, I was talking about that woman on that group
Yep.
who specifically said, I can't be around a man or multiple men, is the idea that when you're in these states, not only are you engaging in this behavior that you might regret later, you might be doing things that you would never do under normal circumstances.
Sure.
So, for instance, that woman in euthymia, in a normal state, might never have sex with multiple partners at once.
Right.
But when she's manic, she might. You know, there are probably people who break their sexuality.
Maybe.
You know, I'm straight and I have sex with someone of my same gender. I'm gay. I have sex with someone of the other gender when I am in a manic state. And those things get to me because the idea of engaging in sexual behavior that you don't want to.
Well, yeah, because sex is like you're most vulnerable.
Yeah.
You're most vulnerable. You are literally either inside someone else or they're inside you.
Yeah.
Like you are like bare bones. There's nothing in between you.
Right. And I'm not going to judge anything that anybody's into.
No, of course not.
But if you're doing something that you're not into.
Right.
You know, again, if you're
or you're not aware of even doing.
Right. Oh, God, you have these memory gaps. I mean, could you imagine that you're a person who under no circumstances, like that the idea of having sex with multiple people at once would horrify you?
Oh, right, yeah.
And then it happens while you're manic and you don't remember it.
Oh my God.
And find out about it later.
That's horrifying.
Yeah.
It's horrifying. And then the shame.
The shame. Yeah. And especially in American culture, because God forbid anybody enjoys sex in America. We're going to shove it down your throat every chance we get, but don't you fucking enjoy it.
Nope. Can't do that. I think there's a lot to talk about here. And I think Brad and I both talked about this. We'd love to get like some sex therapists, sex workers, like people in that community and industry to talk about this kind of thing. Because
especially anyone who's struggling with a mental health issue. And you know what? If you wanted to come on the show, total anonymity.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't have the technology yet to put on one of those voice filters.
But fake name. We don't have to.
Yeah,
we don't have to say who you are. We don't have to say where you live.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, we can refer to you however you want us to.
Yeah, but I think that would be fascinating.
Oh, it'd be great. Because I think it's important to talk about.
And completely. And a segment of society that often gets overlooked.
Totally overlooked.
You know,
and judged.
And judged.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm of the mindset that sex work should be legalized.
Of course it should.
And then these women have some protections.
Yeah, and men.
And men.
Yeah. let's just. I mean, there are the amount of like sex trafficking that occurs and the horrible abuse that occurs with sex workers.
Well, yeah. I mean, imagine. So you're a sex worker. You get sexually assaulted,
Right?
Which probably happens a lot on the job.
I can't even imagine.
You have no legal recourse.
None.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one you can go to. No one you can talk to about it. It's like
absolutely nothing.
So yeah, if I don't know if there are sex workers listening or sex therapists listening, but we'd be super curious to talk with you. And
former or current.
And if you just want to start by sending us a message, I mean, that's a great way to start. You know what I mean? You don't have to come on the show.
You could send us an anonymous email that just gives us some context that we could discuss also.
Love that.
Yeah, because this whole mental illness discussion, it affects so many aspects of our lives and so many careers. And there's certain careers that I think are probably more prone to it. You know, we've talked about being in the arts. There are a lot of people in the arts with mental illness. And, I think there's also certain careers that maybe exacerbate it, or that again, you're experiencing things that you can't get help for the way that you should. And what effect those will have on your mental health. And I think those are discussions that need to be had.
Yeah, definitely. And especially if you can do it with, a little tongue in cheek, a little humor.
Yeah. I mean, you guys listen to this show, we're not looking for you to like cry your eyes out. I mean, we're here if you want to.
Yeah, no, I mean, multiple people have broken down on our show, us included. So,
But
I think you got to humanize it. You got to, bring it to light and have people talk about it and be comfortable with it. And
yeah. It's, I don't know.
Well, I know there wasn't nearly as much sex between Brad and myself as you wanted when you clicked on
and
this
I didn't get to do my strip club announcement.
I know, but you want to do it now?
Yeah, I'll do it now.
Okay, here we go.
Can you give me like the first few bars of Cherry Pie? Everybody put your hands together. We got coming to the stage Candy. Let's hear a big round of applause for Candy.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you know who the Sklar brothers are?
Who?
The Sklar brothers.
Oh, yeah, those twins.
Yeah, they're twins. They used to do stand-up comedy together. They did this whole bit of, like, the hardest working man or woman in America is the strip club DJ.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have to mix, like, hey, we've got Bambi up on the main stage, but also with, like, general club announcements. So it'd be things like, we've got Bambi on the main stage, Emerald on the bar, and if you have a Honda Civic with your lights on, light blue, license plate GYFK2, make sure you get those lights off, but keep your boners hard. For like that's an amazing.
They always have names like Chastity.
Yeah.
Everybody put your hands together for Chastity.
Yeah.
I dated a former stripper once named Angel.
Ooh, nice. Yeah.
She owned, I tell you, a red flag.
Ooh.
That I should not have gone out with her. She owned one book.
What was it?
One book.
What was the book?
A biography of Oprah. Yeah.
I've never read that book.
Again, 19 and horny. I've talked about that before.
I get it.
But talk about a red flag.
That's a pretty big red flag. Very big red flag. Hey, we love all of you. Stay safe. Keep fighting. Please share with us. Share us with the people that need to hear this. And thank you.
Like, subscribe.
All that stuff.
Give us a review.
Yeah.
Help us get out there. We're very proud and excited at the growth this show has had, but we know there are a lot of people who probably need to be hearing something like this that we haven't reached yet. So
and if you guys have thoughts on how we can promote this show or share it with other people, write in. Tell us. We'd love to hear it.
Because God knows we don't know what we're doing.
We do not know what we're doing. That's why, like, every 6th episode, there's a what's it called? A thing, something at the top, me being like, so we messed up the audio again, you guys, and I'm so sorry.
Every Zoom interview.
We're going to get it, though.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Love you guys.